Hi everybody, this is the third and final video that I'm doing on the three Giant gravel bikes, the Giant TCX Advanced, the Giant Contend AR, and the Giant Revolt Advanced. If you missed the other two videos, I'll put the links in below. The first video I talked about was on the geometries of all three bikes. And then the second video was all about the tire clearance of each bike. And this last video is going to be the final video where we talk about the ride characteristics of each bike. Now I know many of you are thinking like, oh, Giant has many more gravel bikes than this. And they do. They have like the tough road, they have the Roam. But this video is more geared towards those bikes that you may want to replace your road bike with. So a bike that can really, do both things, pretty well or very well. So this video is not targeted towards the adventure gravel. It's more along the pavement gravel area, I guess you could say. So before you go crazy and say, hey, this is not Giant gravel bikes, it is. It's just they're more aggressive designs, I guess. I don't know. So as an overview of this video, we're going to start off just talking about the general ride characteristics of each bike. Then we're going to talk about how they handle on the gravel, and then we're going to talk about how they handle on the road and which one may be best for you and your riding situation. The TCX is Giant's pure cyclocross racer and is really a great bike, especially for being the oldest bike of these three. It was one of the first disc brake cyclocross bikes that was out and still one of the best out there. The TCX really has a lot of pop, and when you stand up and get on the pedals, you can really feel it jump forward. The Giant Revolt, which is Giant's pure gravel bike, has to be one of the most forgiving and cushioned rigid bikes I have ridden. Giant has really designed amazing compliance in this frame to take off the hits, especially on those washboard rumbled gravel roads, Where other bikes may cause your fillings to fall out of your teeth, this bike really takes the edge off of each hit. Power transfer is good, but is not going to feel extremely snappy like a cyclocross bike or a pure road bike. The Giant Contend AR is somewhat of the sleeper in this group. It is designed as more of an entry-level endurance bike. I have personally owned this bike since October, so I've really come to know this bike really well and better than any of these bikes here, but I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. Now, the Contend AR is not nearly as compliant as the Revolt, and it doesn't have the snappiness of the TCX. I would say power transfer feels on par with the Revolt as far as snap. I feel the Giant Contend AR is really the bridge between both the TCX and the Revolt. Okay, let's talk about how they handle on the gravel. Now the TCX handles very well on the gravel, but it can be harsh, especially over those longer distances. One advantage of the TCX is that it can clear nearly the same size rubber as the Giant Revolt, so you could put some really large rubber in the frame and run those lower pressures to get some compliance there. The defused seat post definitely helps, but all three bikes have that feature, so compared to the others, it's definitely on the harsher side of things. Now the bottom bracket is higher than the others, so it can feel more sketchy on the rough gravel descents. Something else that causes it to be sketchy is the larger rubber, which, when you put 42 or 45C tires in the TCX, it really makes you feel like you're getting on a horse or something. It's really tall. That is really the double-edged sword of the TCX. You get great comfort with the large rubber, but you feel like a boat sail in the wind. Now the Revolt, this is like a Cadillac of gravel bikes. It isn't as smooth as like a full suspension gravel bike, obviously, but for being a rigid gravel bike, it is exceptionally smooth over those rough gravel roads. You can also put some large rubber into it, up to 45C, to add even more comfort. And with the comfort, the stable geometry of a slacker head tube angle, this is the best bike of the three for those super long gravel rides where all you have to do is focus on pedaling or want to load it down with bags and touring gear. To be honest, for shorter rides, around like 50 miles, I feel this bike is a little boring in a way, which is a result of all that stability that it has for the longer rides. Now the Giant Contend AR is probably the most lively feeling of the three on gravel due to the shorter chainstays, alloy frame, and the steeper head tube angle. It can clear up to 42C, so you can get some more comfort and stability in the bike by going with the larger rubber, but not as much as the other two. I actually prefer a more lively feeling bike with larger rubber for stability for those shorter gravel rides. The bottom bracket is the lowest, so you will feel more inside the bike on those gravel descents, even though the head tube angle is steeper. Also, you're putting larger rubber on the bike, it doesn't feel, freakishly high like the TCX, and it really mixes the geometry and characteristics of both the TCX and the Revolt. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, Billy, why are we talking about how gravel bikes handle on the pavement? Well, there's really three reasons why I see this. The first off is just because you may want that bike to replace your road bike, and with me that's the case. And then obviously you may be looking for a bike to replace all your drop bar bikes. So you may be looking for a bike that can be a road bike, can be a cross bike, and can be a gravel bike. So I'm looking for a bike that can really do well on both fronts, gravel and pavement. The second thing is, to get to the gravel, first off, most of the time you have to ride on a good bit of pavement. At least from where I live, that's the case. You want a bike that's not going to be super sluggish on the pavement if you're going to be trying to get to the dirt. And then also, you're going to have some routes that will have a lot of pavement in them. As far as events that I'm doing, I'm going to be doing more gravel events. So even though I may be riding a majority of the time on the pavement, I want to be on that gravel bike that I'm going to be, racing in or doing those super long rides in. So that's why we will discuss the road handling characteristics of each and if it can actually replace your road bike. The TCX probably has the most road bike feel of the three due to its rigid nature for optimal power transfer. The geometry is somewhat odd though for a road bike, with the 430mm chainstays and the 60mm bottom bracket drop. That high bottom bracket makes you feel a lot higher in the wind on those really windy rides. During group rides, this is really a disadvantage due to sitting higher and catching more wind when you're trying to be in the draft. If you care about mixing it up with the fast group rides, it can be a disadvantage if you're a taller rider. Other than that, the bike feels great on the road. The Revolt really felt sluggish on the road to me. I believe it was from that slacker head tube angle and also the compliance that was built into the frame. I did a few interval workouts on the road with it, and I was not able to go as fast as compared to the other two bikes on the same workout. It wasn't a huge difference, but it was noticeable. During those intervals, I'm usually able to stay with my riding buddy Chris, but he was actually leaving me when I was on the Revolt. The more your ratio of pavement and gravel changes towards pavement, the more I would recommend one of the other two. I know several people out there who have Giant Revolts and they swear by them being amazing on the road, and they do amazing on the road with them, so I'm not sure why it was slower for me. Maybe it was my setup, but I'm not sure. I ran the same wheels and tires as I did on the other two bikes, but it was still slower. The cranks on the Revolt were 175s, which I usually run 170s, so I wasn't super comfortable with that, but I was hitting the same power numbers, I just wasn't going as fast. Another theory I have is that the handlebars were a touch wider than the other two bikes, which could have been causing me to catch more wind. The Giant Contend AR really has a great geometry if you're riding mostly on pavement, with about 30% gravel mixed in. The power transfer isn't as good as a pure road bike or the TCX as far as snappiness, but it doesn't give up much in my opinion.
The lower bottom bracket really allows you to tuck lower and out of the wind, but it does cause your cranks to be uncomfortably close to the ground in turns. That could be an issue if you plan to use this bike for the occasional crit race. I run 170mm cranks like I said before, so not much of an issue for me, but those who run 175 or longer will probably want to go with something around a 70mm bottom bracket drop, so the Contend AR may not work for you. If I were to race this in a crit, I would run some large tires, maybe even some 38mm slicks. During group rides, this lower bottom bracket really helps someone like me who is taller be able to draft behind some smaller riders. If you're a shorter rider, this may not be an issue.
Now, if a buddy of mine came up to me and was asking me, Billy, which one of these bikes will you get? And I can't give them a definitive answer because really they all specialize in certain areas. Obviously TCX and cyclocross, Revolt and gravel, the Contend AR, more pavement oriented. It really depends on what you want to do with your bike. As for me and my personal experiences, I prefer the Contend AR. And I'm not just saying that because that's my bike, but it's because my situation where it's during the week and I can only get in a quick hour here and there between work and family time, is really just pavement. So for me to be able to ride, a lot of my rides during the week are going to be on pavement. And then the Contend AR allows me to put some larger rubber on it and go hit some of the dirt roads on the weekend. Now, if you're going to be riding 70% gravel, you already have a road bike, then I would definitely recommend the Revolt Advanced for you. This bike is like I said, a Cadillac. I mean, it's so smooth on the roads, and it's really a bike where you can kind of forget about handling and you can really just focus on pedaling, and you don't have to worry about wrecking as much. You don't have to worry about the bike being twitchy. It's super stable. It's going to get you through all those rough sections, and then it's also going to allow you to feel a little better at the end of the ride, so maybe you can repeat that process the next day. Now the TCX is really that's your pure cyclocross bike. And as far as the TCX goes, if you race cross and that's your main focus, obviously go with the TCX. I don't see many people who really focus only on cross though. So if you do, let's say 3 or 4 cross races a year and the rest of the time you're on the road and on the gravel, then I would recommend the Revolt or the Contend AR depending on what your percentage of pavement you hit. Okay, so if you're hitting a lot more pavement, go with the Contend AR. A lot of gravel, go with the Revolt. Obviously a ton of cross, go with the TCX. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you found this beneficial, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. If you have any tips, tricks, or advice or suggestions, be sure to leave those in the comment below, and we'll see you in the next video.